There are moments in life that feel ordinary until later, when you realize they were anything but ordinary. Moments when something inside you pauses, something within you stirs, and you cannot quite explain why you stopped scrolling, why your attention locked in, why your spirit suddenly became alert. If right now is one of those moments, this is not random. This is not coincidence. This is not just another message passing through your day. This is a divine interruption. And you feel it, don't you? That subtle pull, that quiet urgency, that whisper inside saying, pay attention, don't skip this. Because what if I told you that at this very moment, something unseen is happening right outside the door of your life? Not a physical door made of wood or steel, but a spiritual threshold. A boundary between what has been and what is about to begin. And standing at that threshold, not symbolically, not metaphorically, but spiritually present, is Archangel Michael. Not waiting casually, not observing from a distance, but standing with purpose, standing with urgency, standing because something has been released concerning you and time is no longer stretching the way it used to. You felt it recently, haven't you? That strange shift in your atmosphere. The way certain things no longer feel the same. The way conversations seem heavier or emptier. The way your spirit feels restless even in moments of silence. The way you've been questioning things you once ignored. That is not confusion. That is awakening. That is your spirit sensing that something is changing. Something deeper than circumstances, something beyond what your eyes can see. And yet there has also been resistance. Distractions showing up at the exact moment you try to focus. Fatigue hitting when you try to reflect. Doubt creeping in when clarity gets close. It's almost as if something doesn't want you to fully receive what's trying to reach you. Almost as if something is trying to delay this exact moment. But here you are. Still listening, still present, still aware. And that alone tells you something powerful. You were meant to hear this. Because the truth is, not everyone would have stopped here. Not everyone would have felt this pull. Not everyone would have stayed long enough to receive what's coming next. But you did. You are. And that's because this message carries your name in the spirit. There is a reason the timing feels urgent. There is a reason this message feels different from everything else you've encountered. It's because this is not information. It's activation. It's not entertainment. It's alignment. Something has been set into motion, and heaven is not waiting for the perfect time to tell you. Heaven is telling you now. Right now. Before you get distracted again. Before you brush it off. Before you return to what feels familiar but no longer fits who you're becoming. Archangel Michael does not arrive without reason. His presence is not casual. His timing is never accidental. When he stands at your door, it means something has already been decided in the spiritual realm. It means something has already shifted. It means a message, a warning, a revelation, a protection, is being delivered with precision. And here's the part you need to understand clearly: the knock has already happened. The question is not whether the message is being sent. The question is, will you open it? Because many have missed moments like this before. Not because they weren't chosen, but because they hesitated. They doubted. They delayed. They told themselves, I'll come back to it later. And later never carried the same weight. Later didn't hold the same clarity. Later closed the window that had been briefly open. But you are here now. And something inside you already knows. This is not the moment to delay. This is the moment to lean in. To listen closely. To stay present. Because what is about to unfold will answer questions you didn't even know how to ask. It will reveal things you felt but couldn't explain. It will connect patterns, confirm suspicions, and prepare you for something that is already closer than you think. So don't rush this. Don't skip ahead. Don't let your mind wander. Because the same force that tried to distract you before will try again. But this time, you are aware. This time, you are ready. This time, you will not miss what you were meant to hear. And as this message continues, something deeper will begin to unfold, not just around you, but within you. A clarity, a realization, a shift that cannot be undone once it is seen. Because the door is still there, and Archangel Michael is still standing at it, waiting. Type "I am ready" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1010 is now surrounding you. There is something you need to understand right now, and it may challenge the way you usually see things, but you must hear it clearly. You were not randomly led here. Out of all the voices, all the distractions, all the content constantly moving around you, something caused you to stop here, to listen, to stay. That was not coincidence. That was selection. Not by chance, but by design. Because when heaven sends a message with this level of urgency, it does not scatter it carelessly. It directs it with precision. And somehow, through everything competing for your attention, it found you. You may be wondering why. Why you? Why now? Why this message at this exact moment in your life? And the answer is deeper than surface logic. It is not about where you are physically. It is not about what you have achieved or what you lack. It is about your sensitivity to something beyond the visible. There has always been something different about you, even if you could not fully explain it. A quiet awareness, an intuition that notices what others overlook, a feeling that there is more happening beneath the surface of everyday life. You have felt things before they happened. You have sensed shifts before they became obvious. And at times, you may have dismissed it, thinking it was just your imagination. But it was never just that. It was discernment beginning to awaken. That is exactly why this message has reached you. Because you are one of the few who can still feel when something is not ordinary. You are one of the few who does not fully ignore the subtle nudges, the inner signals, the quiet warnings. And even when you tried to brush them off, something in you kept returning to them. That is not weakness. That is not overthinking. That is spiritual awareness trying to come into full alignment. And now, it is no longer subtle. Now it is being confirmed. There have been moments recently when you felt out of place in situations that once felt normal. Conversations that no longer resonate the same way. Environments that feel heavier than they should. Even your own thoughts shifting, questioning things you once accepted without hesitation. You may have thought something was wrong, but in truth, something is right. You are becoming more aware. You are beginning to see beyond appearances. And when that happens, not everything can remain the same. This is where most people turn away. This is where most people distract themselves, return to comfort, and ignore what they feel. But you did not fully turn away. Even when you tried to move on, something kept pulling you back toward understanding. That is why you are here now. Because you are at a point where ignoring it is no longer possible. And heaven does not send a message like this to someone who is not ready to receive it, even if it feels overwhelming at first. There is also something else you need to recognize. The resistance you have been experiencing is not random. The distractions, the delays, the sudden lack of clarity at important moments, the feeling of almost understanding something but not quite reaching it. These are not accidents. They are interruptions. Because when awareness begins to rise, something always attempts to suppress it. Not to harm you directly, but to keep you from seeing clearly. To keep you in a place where things remain unchanged. But you are no longer in that place. The fact that you are still here, still listening, still open, means something has already shifted within you. You are no longer moving unconsciously through patterns. You are beginning to question, to observe, to recognize. And that is the exact moment when messages like this are delivered. Not before, not after, but precisely when you are able to receive them without dismissing them entirely. You may not have all the answers yet. You may not fully understand what is unfolding. But you do not need to understand everything right now. You only need to recognize that you were meant to hear this. That there is a reason this moment feels different. That there is a reason you did not scroll past. And that reason is not something outside of you. It is something already within you responding. Because being chosen does not mean being perfect. It does not mean having everything figured out. It means being receptive. It means being aware enough to pause when something deeper is trying to reach you. And you have done that. You are doing that right now. Which means you are already aligned more than you realize. And as this continues, what has felt unclear will begin to take shape. What has felt distant will begin to come closer. And what you could not quite understand before will start to make sense in a way that is direct, unmistakable, and impossible to ignore. Type "I am chosen" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 2020 is now activated. There is something shifting right now, and you can feel it even if you cannot fully explain it. It is not loud. It is not obvious. It does not arrive with clear announcements or visible signs that everyone can see. But within you, there is a quiet pressure, a sense that time is moving differently than it was before. Moments feel heavier. Decisions feel more important. Even small choices seem to carry weight you did not notice in the past. That is because you are no longer operating in ordinary timing. You are standing in a moment where heaven's timing is intersecting with your life, and when that happens, everything becomes more precise. You must understand this clearly. Not every moment carries the same level of significance. There are seasons where things unfold slowly, where time stretches, where delays feel normal and nothing feels urgent. But then there are moments like this, where something opens briefly, where clarity is available in a way it was not before, where direction becomes accessible if you are willing to pay attention. These moments do not last forever. They are windows, and when a window opens, it requires awareness to step through it. That is why this message feels urgent. Not because you are in danger, not because something is about to collapse, but because something is about to shift. And if you are not attentive, you may miss the exact alignment that is being presented to you. You have experienced this before, even if you did not recognize it at the time. Moments where you felt you should act, but hesitated. Moments where you sensed something important, but dismissed it. Moments where clarity was close, but distraction pulled you away. And later, when you looked back, you realized that moment carried more meaning than you understood. This is not one of those moments you are meant to miss. There is a reason distractions have been increasing. There is a reason your focus has been challenged. There is a reason you have felt pulled in multiple directions at once. Because when timing becomes important, interruption also becomes more active. Not to stop you completely, but to delay you just enough that you overlook what is right in front of you. That is how most people miss these windows. Not through major mistakes, but through small distractions, small delays, small decisions to come back later instead of staying present now. But something is different this time. You are aware. You are noticing the pull. You are recognizing that this moment carries something deeper, and that awareness is exactly what allows you to respond differently. Archangel Michael does not stand at your door during ordinary time. His presence signals that something has already been set into motion. Something has already been decided in the spiritual realm, and now the timing has reached a point where you must become aware of it. This is not about rushing or forcing decisions. It is about recognizing that you are being positioned. Positioned to see clearly. Positioned to understand what has been hidden. Positioned to step into alignment before the moment passes. There is also something else you need to recognize. The urgency you feel is not pressure to act blindly. It is an invitation to pay attention deeply. To observe what is happening within you and around you without dismissing it. Because clarity does not always arrive all at once. Sometimes it unfolds gradually, piece by piece, as long as you remain present enough to receive it. Right now, you are in that unfolding. Something you have been questioning will begin to make sense. Something that felt uncertain will begin to show its pattern. Something you could not see clearly before will start to reveal itself in a way that feels undeniable. But this only happens if you stay aligned with the moment instead of drifting away from it. This is why timing matters. Not because everything depends on one single decision, but because awareness at the right time changes everything. It shifts how you respond. It shifts what you notice. It shifts the direction you move in next. And those shifts, even if they seem small, create outcomes that would not have been possible otherwise. So do not treat this moment casually. Do not assume you can return to it later in the same way. Because later does not carry the same alignment. Later does not hold the same clarity. What is available to you right now is specific to now. And you are here, present within it. Which means you are exactly where you need to be. Type "I am aligned" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 3030 is now activated. As this moment of divine timing settles into your spirit, understand this: when you respond to a call like this, you are not just receiving, you are participating in something greater than yourself. Every time you sow into this mission through Super Thanks or PayPal, you become a vessel through which light reaches someone still searching in darkness. The word says, "Give, and it shall be given unto you," and this is not a distant promise. It is a living exchange unfolding through your obedience right now. I feel led to say this clearly. Your seed is not a donation. It is a divine action that unlocks breakthrough not only in others, but in your own path. As you give, you water ground that heaven is preparing for a harvest far beyond what you can see. The links are placed before you, in the description, and even within reach through the QR code. This is your moment to act. Step into it with intention, because what you release now will return to you multiplied. There is a difference between believing something in theory and sensing it in reality. Many have heard of Archangel Michael. Many have spoken his name, imagined his presence, or associated him with distant stories of protection and strength. But what you are encountering right now is not distant. It is not symbolic in the way you once understood it. It is immediate. It is intentional. It is close. Because when it is said that Archangel Michael is at your door, it is not meant to be interpreted as a metaphor to comfort you. It is a statement meant to awaken you. You must begin to understand presence in a different way. Not everything that is real can be seen. Not everything that stands near you makes noise. Some of the most powerful movements happen without announcement, without visible form, without anything that the physical senses can easily grasp. Yet your spirit recognizes it. Your awareness picks up on it. That is why something feels different right now. That is why this moment carries weight. because you are not alone in it. Archangel Michael's presence is not passive. It does not linger without purpose. It does not arrive without assignment. When he stands at your door, it means something has reached a point where intervention, clarity, or protection is required. It means something has already been observed, already been understood, already been evaluated beyond what you can currently see. And now, that understanding is being brought closer to you, not all at once, but in a way you can begin to receive. You may not see him, but you feel the shift. You feel the stillness that carries strength. You feel the quiet that is not empty, but filled with awareness. You feel the sense that something is watching, not to judge you, but to guard you. That is the nature of his presence. It does not overwhelm you. It surrounds you. It steadies you. It creates a space where confusion begins to lose its hold and clarity starts to form. There have been moments when you felt uncertain, when you questioned what was happening around you, when things did not seem to align the way they should. And in those moments, something kept you from completely falling into that uncertainty. Something held you steady even when you did not understand why. That was not random stability. That was protection operating quietly in the background. And now, that protection is no longer remaining in the background. It is stepping closer into your awareness. But here is what you must not misunderstand. His presence is not there to make decisions for you. It is not there to remove every challenge or prevent every difficulty. It is there to ensure that what is meant for you is not lost through lack of awareness. It is there to ensure that when something important approaches, you are not completely unprepared to recognize it. It is there to guide, not control, to protect, not restrict, to reveal, not overwhelm. This is why the door matters. The door represents your awareness, your willingness to acknowledge what is present instead of ignoring it. Because even when something stands right in front of you, it does not enter without permission. Not in the physical sense, but in the way of understanding. You can still choose to dismiss it. You can still choose to turn away. You can still choose to treat this as something ordinary and move on. And if you do, the moment does not force itself upon you. It simply passes, leaving you where you were before. But you are not choosing that. You are still here, still listening, still allowing this moment to unfold. And that means the door is not closed. It is not locked. It is not ignored. It is being approached. And as you continue to stay present, something begins to open, not externally, but internally. A recognition, a clarity, a sense that what you are experiencing right now is not something to overlook. There is also a reason why this presence feels calm rather than overwhelming. Because true protection does not create fear. It removes it. True guidance does not confuse you. It simplifies what felt complicated. And true awareness does not rush you. It brings you into stillness so you can see clearly. Right now, you are being brought into that stillness. Everything that felt scattered begins to slow down. Everything that felt unclear begins to organize itself. Not all at once, but enough for you to notice the shift. Enough for you to recognize that something is different about this moment compared to others. And that difference is not external. It is the presence you are now becoming aware of. You do not need to force understanding. You do not need to analyze every detail. You only need to remain open to what is unfolding. Because as this continues, what you could not see before will begin to take shape in a way that feels direct and undeniable. The door is still there. The presence is still there. And now, more than before, you are aware of both. Type "I am protected" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 4040 is now activated. There is a truth you are beginning to sense, and it may feel uncomfortable at first, but it is necessary for you to fully step into what is unfolding. The truth is this: there have been things happening around you, patterns forming, signs appearing, shifts taking place, and you did not fully recognize them when they were happening. Not because you were incapable, not because you were unaware by nature, but because your attention was divided, your focus pulled in too many directions, and your awareness was not yet aligned with what was trying to reveal itself. This is not something to regret. It is something to understand. Because what you missed was never completely lost. It was simply not fully seen at the time. And now, you are being brought back into alignment with it, piece by piece. That is why certain memories are returning. That is why certain realizations are forming. That is why things you once dismissed are beginning to feel significant. Your awareness is catching up to what was already unfolding. Think about the moments recently when something felt slightly off, but you brushed it aside. A conversation that did not sit right with you. A decision that felt rushed. A situation that seemed normal on the surface but carried a subtle tension underneath. At the time, you may have moved past it quickly, choosing not to overthink it. But now, when you reflect on it, it feels different. It feels like there was more there than you allowed yourself to see. It is what has been missing. Not the event itself, but the depth of it. Not the moment, but the meaning behind it. You have been moving through situations with partial awareness, seeing what is obvious but not always what is underlying. And that is not unusual. Most people live this way, reacting to what is visible and ignoring what is subtle. But you are no longer in that position. Something within you has shifted, and now you are beginning to perceive more than before. This is where clarity begins. Because once you start to notice patterns, they cannot be unseen. Once you begin to connect moments, they start to form a larger picture. And once that picture begins to take shape, your decisions change. Your responses change. Your direction changes. Not because someone tells you what to do, but because you begin to see for yourself. There have also been opportunities you did not fully recognize when they appeared. Moments where you felt a slight pull to act, but hesitated. Situations where you could have stepped forward, but chose to wait. And at the time, it may have seemed like a small decision, something that did not matter much. But now, you are beginning to realize that those moments carried more weight than you understood. Again, this is not about regret. It is about awareness. Because now, those same types of moments are returning, but you are not the same as you were before. You are more attentive, more observant, more aligned with what you feel internally. And that means you will not respond the same way. You will not overlook what you once overlooked. You will not dismiss what you once dismissed. There is also something else you need to recognize. The things you have been missing were not always external. Some of them were internal. Feelings you push aside. Intuition you ignored. Thoughts you questioned even though they felt clear in the moment. You may have doubted yourself, thinking you were overanalyzing or imagining things. But in many cases, you were perceiving something accurately, just without the confidence to trust it fully. That is changing now. You are beginning to trust what you sense, even if you cannot explain it immediately. You are beginning to give attention to what you feel, instead of dismissing it. And that shift alone changes everything. Because awareness is not about having all the answers instantly. It is about recognizing when something matters and allowing yourself to stay with it long enough for clarity to emerge. This is why Archangel Michael's presence at your door is significant. because it marks a point where what was previously unnoticed can no longer remain hidden. Not because it suddenly appeared, but because you are now able to see it. You are stepping into a different level of perception, where things are not just experienced, but understood. Where moments are not just passed through, but recognized. Where decisions are not just made, but aligned. And as this continues, more will begin to surface, not in a way that overwhelms you, but in a way that builds gradually, allowing you to absorb it, process it, and integrate it into your awareness. You are not behind. You are not late. You are arriving at the exact point where you can finally see clearly what was always there, and that clarity will guide everything that comes next. Type ISE clearly now in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 5050 is now activated. There is something unfolding around you that you cannot fully see, yet you have felt its effects more than once. It has shown up in moments of confusion, in sudden shifts of energy, in situations that did not quite make sense no matter how much you tried to understand them logically. And what you must realize now is this: not everything you experience operates on the surface level. There are deeper forces at work, influences that move quietly, patterns that form without immediate explanation. And you have been standing in the middle of that movement without fully recognizing it until now. This is what many misunderstand. A spiritual battle is not always dramatic, loud, or obvious. It does not always appear as chaos or conflict. Sometimes, it appears as subtle interference, a delay where there should have been progress, a misunderstanding where there should have been clarity, a hesitation where there should have been confidence. These are the ways it moves, not to overwhelm you all at once, but to slowly redirect your focus away from what matters most. You have experienced this. Moments where you felt certain about something, only to second-guess yourself without a clear reason. Times when your energy dropped suddenly, even though nothing around you had changed. Situations where you felt like you were moving forward, only to find yourself pulled back into the same pattern again. These are not random occurrences. They are part of a larger movement that has been surrounding you, shaping your environment in ways you are only now beginning to see. But here is what changes everything: awareness. The moment you begin to recognize that something is influencing your direction, it loses its ability to operate unnoticed. It loses the advantage of invisibility. And that is exactly where you are now. You are no longer moving through these patterns unconsciously. You are starting to see them, to question them, to step back and observe instead of react immediately. This is where the shift begins. Because once you stop reacting automatically, you start choosing differently. You begin to pause before responding. You begin to notice what triggers certain thoughts, certain emotion, certain decision. And in that pause, you regain control over your direction. Not by force, not by resistance, but by clarity. Archangel Michael's presence is not arriving in a moment of stillness without reason. It is arriving because something has been active around you, something that required protection, guidance, and awareness. Not to fight in the way you might imagine, but to stand as a stabilizing force, ensuring that what is meant for you is not diverted through confusion or distraction. This is important to understand. The battle is not about overpowering you. It is about influencing you. Influencing your perception, your focus, your decisions. And influence only works when it goes unnoticed. Once you see it, once you recognize the pattern, its hold begins to weaken. Think about the moments when you felt pulled in a direction that did not fully align with you. Moments where something seemed right on the surface, but something deeper felt uncertain. In the past, you may have ignored that deeper feeling. You may have followed what was easier, what was familiar, what required less questioning. But now, you are no longer ignoring that signal. You are beginning to trust it. That is how you move through this. Not by forcing outcomes, not by trying to control everything around you, but by staying aligned with what you sense when you are fully present. Because when you are present, when you are aware, you cannot be easily redirected without noticing it. There is also something else you need to recognize. The resistance you have felt is not a sign that you are off track. In many cases, it is a sign that you are moving closer to something important. Because the closer you move toward clarity, the more those subtle interferences attempt to keep you where you were. Not through force, but through distraction, through doubt, through delay. But now, you are seeing it. You are noticing when your focus shifts unnecessarily. You are recognizing when something feels off. You are beginning to separate what is truly aligned from what is simply familiar. And that separation is powerful. It changes how you move forward. This is not about fear. It is about understanding. Because once you understand that there is more happening than what is visible, you stop taking everything at face value. You start observing more carefully. You start listening more closely. You start trusting what you sense even when it cannot be immediately explained. And that is exactly where you are being guided. Into a place where you are no longer easily influenced without awareness. Into a place where your clarity begins to outweigh confusion. Into a place where your direction is no longer shaped by what surrounds you, but by what you recognize within you. The battle may still exist, but it no longer operates in the same way once you see it. And now, you are seeing it. Type "I stand in clarity" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 6060 is now activated. Something has already begun, and the reason it feels difficult to fully grasp is because it did not announce itself when it started. It did not arrive with a clear signal or a moment you could point to and say, "This is when everything changed." Instead, it moved quietly, almost unnoticed at first, adjusting things beneath the surface while everything around you appeared the same. But now, you are beginning to feel it. Not as a sudden event, but as a growing awareness that something is no longer as it was. This is the nature of a true shift. It does not always happen in a single moment. It unfolds gradually, layer by layer, until you reach a point where you can no longer deny that things are different. You may have noticed subtle changes in how you respond to situations. Things that once triggered immediate reactions now feel less intense. Conversations that once held your attention now feel distant or unimportant. Even your own thoughts are beginning to change, moving in directions you did not expect before. At first, this can feel unsettling, because when something shifts internally, it creates a contrast with what is still unchanged externally. You may find yourself looking at the same environment, the same people, the same routines, but experiencing them differently. That difference is not confusion. It is alignment beginning to take place. You are not losing connection. You are gaining clarity. And clarity changes everything. There have been patterns in your life that repeated themselves in ways you did not fully question before. Certain situations seem to return, certain outcomes seem familiar, certain dynamics played out again and again. But now, something is interrupting that repetition. You are starting to notice the pattern before it fully forms. You are starting to recognize the moment where a choice can lead you in a different direction. This is where the shift becomes real, because it is no longer something happening to you. It is something you are participating in. Archangel Michael's presence is not arriving at the beginning of this shift. It is arriving in the middle of it. That means the process has already started. The alignment has already begun. And now, Your awareness is catching up to what has been set in motion. You may begin to see things more clearly in the coming moments, not in a dramatic or overwhelming way, but in small realizations that connect together. A situation that suddenly makes sense. A behavior that reveals its true pattern. A decision that becomes obvious where it once felt uncertain. These are not coincidences. They are confirmations of the shift you are moving through. There is also a release happening. Not necessarily something you have consciously decided, but something that is occurring naturally as your awareness changes. Things that no longer align with you begin to lose their hold. Not through force, not through resistance, but through lack of connection. You simply stop engaging with them in the same way. You stop investing energy into what no longer feels right. And without that energy, those patterns begin to fade. This is important to recognize because it shows you that change does not always require struggle. Sometimes it requires awareness. Sometimes it requires simply seeing something clearly enough that you no longer choose it. That is what is happening now. You are seeing more clearly. And because of that, your direction is adjusting. There is also a sense of timing connected to this shift. Certain things are aligning now that could not align before. Not because they were unavailable, but because you were not yet in the position to recognize them fully. Now, as your awareness expands, those same opportunities, those same insights, those same paths begin to appear differently. This is why it feels like something is approaching. Because it is. But it is not approaching from the outside alone. It is emerging from within your own alignment. As you shift, what you encounter shifts with you. As you become more aware, what you notice becomes more precise. And as you remain present, what unfolds becomes clearer. You are no longer standing at the beginning. You are in the middle of something that has already started. And that means what comes next is not about initiating change, but about continuing it with awareness. Do not rush this. Do not try to force understanding all at once. Let it unfold naturally, just as it has been. Because each realization builds on the last, and together they create a clarity that cannot be undone once it is fully seen. The shift is already happening. You are already within it. And now, you are beginning to recognize it. Type "I embrace the shift" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 7070 is now activated. There are moments when a message is given as guidance, and then there are moments when a message is given as a warning. What you are hearing right now is not casual direction. It is not a suggestion you can return to later without consequence. It carries weight because it is meant to prevent something, to redirect something, to bring your awareness to a point where ignoring it would only lead you back into what you have already been pulled out of. And you feel that difference, even now. There is a seriousness to this moment that cannot be mistaken for something ordinary. You must understand this clearly. Not every warning arrives loudly. Not every warning comes with visible danger or immediate consequences. Some warnings come quietly, before anything obvious has happened, while there is still time to adjust, to step back, to see clearly. And those are the most important ones. Because once something becomes visible in the physical sense, it has often already progressed further than it should have. This is why you are being told now, before everything reveals itself completely. There is something you are being guided away from. Not necessarily something dramatic or extreme, but something that does not align with where you are moving. It may be a pattern, a decision, a connection, or even a mindset that has followed you for longer than you realized. And until now, it has remained in place because it was familiar, because it did not appear harmful on the surface, because it blended into your routine without drawing attention. But now, It is being brought into your awareness. You may begin to notice it more clearly. The way it influences your decisions. The way it shifts your focus. The way it creates subtle confusion or hesitation at moments when clarity is needed. These are not random effects. They are indicators. Signals that something is not aligned with the direction you are now moving toward. The warning is not about fear. It is about recognition. Because once you recognize what does not align, you are no longer meant to continue engaging with it in the same way. You are not meant to ignore it, justify it, or return to it simply because it is familiar. You are meant to see it for what it is and adjust accordingly. That adjustment does not have to be immediate or drastic, but it must be intentional. This is where many people hesitate. They recognize something is off, but they delay responding to it. They wait for more confirmation, more clarity, more certainty. And while they wait, the pattern continues. The influence remains. The same outcomes begin to repeat. Not because they were unaware, but because they chose not to act on what they already sensed. But you are not in that position anymore. You are already aware. And that awareness carries responsibility. Archangel Michael's presence is not only about protection. It is also about separation. Not separation in a physical sense, but in a sense of alignment. Separating what belongs in your path from what does not. Separating what supports your direction from what interferes with it. And once that separation becomes clear, you are no longer meant to treat everything the same. There is also something approaching that will test this awareness. A moment where you will be presented with a choice that feels familiar, almost comfortable. It may not appear significant at first, but it will reflect the very pattern you are now being warned about. And in that moment, your response will determine whether you move forward in alignment or step back into what you have already begun to leave behind. This is why the warning is being given now, before that moment arrives, so that when it does, you do not hesitate, so that when it appears, you recognize it immediately, so that when you feel that internal signal, you trust it without questioning it, because clarity is only effective when it is acted upon, and you are being prepared to act differently than before. Do not dismiss this. Do not assume it will not matter. Do not convince yourself that you can return to it later and respond the same way. Because this moment is different. You are different. And what you choose next will reflect that difference. The warning is not here to restrict you. It is here to guide you away from what no longer belongs in your path. And if you remain aware, if you stay aligned, if you trust what you now recognize, you will move forward without repeating what has already been revealed to you. Type "I trust" the warning in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 8080 is now activated. As this warning settles into your spirit, understand that every time truth reaches you, it is meant to flow through you into the lives of others who are still searching for clarity. When you choose to support this mission through Super Thanks or PayPal, you are not giving to a message. You are becoming part of the movement that carries light into places where confusion still exists. The word declares, "Those who sow in righteousness will reap a sure reward," and this is your moment to step into that living promise. I speak this over you now. As you release your seed, heaven will release insight, favor, and alignment back into your life in ways you cannot predict. I feel this clearly. This is not just generosity. This is obedience in motion. The opportunity is already before you, in the description and through the QR code. Do not delay this moment. Act now, because what you sow today will echo far beyond what you can see. There is something about you that has never fully blended in, even when you tried to make it seem like it did. It is not always visible on the surface. It is not something people can easily define or explain, but it is felt, is noticed, and whether others admit it or not, it creates a reaction. Sometimes that reaction comes as admiration. Sometimes it comes as distance. And other times, it comes as subtle resistance that you could never quite understand. What you are beginning to realize now is that this reaction has never been random. It has always been connected to something you carry. You have a presence that shifts environments even when you say nothing. You have a way of seeing through things that others try to present as normal. You notice inconsistencies. You sense when something is not aligned. And even when you choose not to speak on it, your awareness alone changes the dynamic around you. That is not something everyone is comfortable with. Because when someone carries clarity, it naturally exposes what others would rather keep hidden. This is where misunderstanding often begins. People may not openly acknowledge what they feel, but they respond to it. You may have experienced moments where your growth created distance between you and others. Not because you intentionally separated yourself, but because your awareness began to operate at a different level. Conversations that once felt engaging now feel limited. Situations that once felt acceptable now feel restrictive. And people who once felt aligned now feel distant, even if nothing outwardly dramatic has occurred. This is not something to take personally. It is something to understand. Because your presence is not meant to remain at a level that keeps everything comfortable. It is meant to evolve. And as it evolves, not everything around you remains in alignment with it. Some things naturally fall away. Some connections shift. Some dynamics change without confrontation or explanation. And that can feel confusing if you are expecting everything to remain the same. But it was never meant to remain the same. There is a reason why certain people feel unsettled around you when you begin to see clearly. It is not because you are doing something wrong. It is because clarity disrupts what is built on confusion. Awareness challenges what is maintained through assumption. And when you begin to operate from a place of understanding, it creates a contrast with those who are still operating without it. This is where fear can appear. Not fear in the way it is openly expressed, but fear in the way people react. Avoidance, deflection, subtle resistance. These are not always conscious behaviors, but they are responses to something they cannot fully control or predict. Because when you carry awareness, you cannot be easily influenced in the same way. You cannot be guided without questioning. You cannot be led without recognizing the direction. And that changes everything. Archangel Michael's presence at your door is not separate from this. It is connected to it. Because when you carry something that has the potential to shift your direction and influence your path, protection becomes necessary. Not because you are in constant danger, but because what you carry must not be diluted, redirected, or lost through external influence. There have been moments where you felt like you had to adjust yourself to fit into certain situations. Moments where you held back what you truly thought or felt, simply to maintain balance. And while that may have seemed easier at the time, it also limited your ability to fully operate in alignment with yourself. Now, that is changing. You are beginning to recognize that your presence is not something to reduce or reshape for the comfort of others. It is something to understand and stand in, not in a forceful or confrontational way, but in a grounded and clear way. A way that does not require validation, explanation, or approval. This is where your power becomes fully active, not as something that controls others, but as something that stabilizes you, as something that keeps your direction consistent even when external influences attempt to shift it, as something that allows you to move forward without needing constant reassurance. And yes, that will create reactions. Some will respect it. Some will distance themselves from it. Some will not understand it at all. But none of that changes what it is. Because what you carry is not dependent on how others respond to it. It is already there. It has always been there. And now, you are beginning to recognize it without minimizing it. This is not a moment to question yourself. This is a moment to stand in what you are becoming aware of. Because as you continue forward, that awareness will guide you more clearly than anything external ever could. And the more you trust it, the more stable your path becomes. Type IOWN my power in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 9090 is now activated. There comes a point in every unfolding process where awareness alone is no longer enough. A point where seeing clearly must be followed by choosing deliberately. And whether you realize it fully yet or not, you are standing at that point right now. Everything you have felt, everything you have begun to understand, everything that has been revealed to you up to this moment has been leading toward a single, defining shift. Not a dramatic external event, not something that forces itself upon you, but a decision. A quiet, internal decision that will determine the direction you move in from here. This is how real change happens. Not through sudden, overwhelming transformations, but through precise moments where you recognize what is in front of you and choose differently than you did before. You have already been prepared for this. Every realization, every warning, every subtle shift in your awareness has been aligning you with this exact point. And now, the moment is no longer approaching. It is here. The decision may not look significant on the surface. It may appear as a simple choice, something you could easily overlook or postpone. But beneath that simplicity is something much deeper. Because this decision is not just about one situation. It is connected to a pattern. A pattern that has repeated itself in different forms, in different moments, in different environments throughout your life. You have seen this pattern before. You have felt the moment when it begins to form. The familiar pull, the subtle pressure, the sense that you are being led toward a direction you have already experienced. In the past, you may have followed it without questioning, not because you were unaware, but because it felt easier to continue with what was familiar than to step into something uncertain. But this time is different. This time, you are not moving unconsciously. This time, you see it. And because you see it, you have a choice that you did not fully recognize before. You can repeat the pattern, or you can break it. This is the decision that will change everything. It does not require force. It does not require confrontation. It does not require you to prove anything to anyone. It requires clarity. It requires presence. It requires you to trust what you already know, even if that knowing feels quiet at first. There may be a moment very soon where this decision becomes tangible. A situation where you feel that familiar pull again. A conversation, an opportunity, a response that feels almost automatic. And in that moment, you will recognize it. Not because someone tells you, but because something within you signals it immediately. That signal is what you must trust. Not the surface appearance. Not the comfort of familiarity. But the deeper recognition that you have already begun to develop. This is where many people hesitate. They recognize the moment, but they question themselves. They look for external confirmation. They wait for something to validate what they already feel internally. And in that waiting, the moment passes. The pattern repeats. The same outcome unfolds again. But you are not meant to hesitate this time. You are not meant to wait for confirmation outside of yourself. Because the confirmation has already been given. It has been building within you through everything you have just experienced. Archangel Michael's presence is not only about protection and awareness. It is about positioning you at this exact point with enough clarity to choose differently, to step forward in alignment instead of falling back into repetition, to move with intention instead of reaction. And once this decision is made, something shifts permanently. Not necessarily in the external world immediately, but within your direction, within your movement, within the way you approach everything that comes next. Because once you break a pattern with awareness, it loses its ability to repeat in the same way. You are no longer available to it. You are no longer influenced by it in the same way. You move forward differently, even in situations that once would have led you back. This is why this decision matters. Not because it changes everything instantly, but because it changes the path you are walking on from this moment forward. And that path leads to outcomes you could not reach before, simply because you were moving differently. So when the moment comes, do not rush. Do not overthink. Do not look away from what you recognize. Stay present. Trust what you feel, and choose in alignment with what you now understand. Because that single decision will create a shift that continues long after the moment itself has passed. Type "I choose differently" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1010 is now activated. There is something you must face with honesty in this moment, not with fear, but with clarity. Every message carries a purpose, and every purpose carries a consequence when it is ignored. Not as punishment, not as something imposed upon you, but as a natural result of remaining in the same place when you have already been shown the way forward. And right now, you are no longer unaware. You are no longer in a position where you can say you did not see, did not feel, did not recognize what was being revealed to you. You have seen it. You have felt it. And now, you must understand what it means to turn away from it. Ignoring this call does not mean everything suddenly collapses. It does not mean something dramatic happens immediately. In fact, it often feels like nothing changes at all. Life continues. Conversations continue. Patterns continue. And that is exactly the point. Because when something important is ignored, the result is not always destruction. It is repetition. You return to the same cycles. The same thoughts that once confused you begin to take hold again. The same patterns that were beginning to break quietly rebuild themselves. The same situations that felt familiar before begin to reappear, not because they are meant to stay, but because they were never fully released. This is how stagnation works. Not by stopping everything, but by keeping everything just the same. You may find yourself revisiting decisions you already questioned, engaging with situations you already sensed were not aligned, doubting the clarity that once felt strong within you. And over time, that clarity becomes quieter, not because it disappeared, but because it was not acted upon when it was strongest. This is what you must not allow, because you have already moved beyond that level of awareness. You have already reached a point where you can see what is happening, where you can recognize what is repeating, where you can feel when something is not aligned. And once you reach that point, going back is not neutral. It creates a deeper sense of disconnection, because you know what you are doing, even as you do it. There is also something else that happens when a call like this is ignored. The next opportunity does not arrive in the same way. It may still come, but it will not carry the same clarity, the same timing, the same alignment. Because this moment is specific. It is designed for now, for where you are, for what you are ready to understand. And if it is missed, the path does not end, but it changes. It becomes longer. It becomes less direct. It requires you to move through additional layers before reaching the same level of awareness again. Not because you are being tested, but because alignment was available and not chosen. You must also recognize that ignoring this call does not remove what you carry. It does not reduce your awareness permanently. It simply delays your ability to fully operate within it. And during that delay, you remain exposed to the same influences, the same patterns, the same cycles that you were already beginning to move beyond. That is the real cost. Not loss, but delay. Not failure, but repetition. Not absence, but distance from what you were already approaching. And you can feel the difference between moving forward and staying where you are. You can sense when something is progressing and when something is simply repeating itself. That awareness is already within you, and it becomes stronger each time you acknowledge it, and weaker each time you ignore it. This is why this moment matters. Because you are not being asked to do something complicated. You are being asked to respond to what you already recognize, to stay aligned with what has already been revealed, to move forward with the clarity that has already been given to you. Archangel Michael's presence at your door is not indefinite, not because it disappears completely, but because this specific moment of awareness does not remain open forever. It is here now, fully accessible, fully clear, and what you do with it determines how you move from here. You do not need to force anything. You do not need to change everything at once. You only need to remain aligned with what you now know. Because that alignment prevents repetition. It prevents delay. It keeps you moving forward without returning to what you have already outgrown. And once you choose that, even quietly, even internally, the path ahead begins to open in a way that feels steady and unmistakable. So do not turn away now. Not after everything you have begun to see. Not after everything you have begun to understand. Stay with it. Follow it. And let this moment become the point where you no longer return to what you were already meant to leave behind. Type "I will not ignore this" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1111 is now activated. You have reached a moment that is not like the others. Not like the moments you have passed through without noticing. Not like the times when you felt something but chose to ignore it. This moment is different because now, everything has been brought together. The awareness, the warning, the shift, the recognition, the decision. It has all led you here. And now, you are no longer standing outside of understanding. You are standing at the doorway of it. This doorway is not something physical, yet it is more real than anything you can touch. It is the point where who you have been meets who you are becoming. It is the space between repetition and transformation. And what you do now determines which side you step into. Because this is not just about what you have heard. It is about what you are ready to embody. You have felt the pull. You have recognized the patterns. You have seen what no longer aligns. You have sensed what is trying to shift. And now, the only thing that remains is your willingness to step fully into it. Not partially, not hesitantly, but with clarity that does not require constant reassurance. This is where many people stop. They reach the doorway, they feel the change, but they hesitate at the threshold. They look back at what is familiar. They question what lies ahead. They wait for something to guarantee the outcome before they take the step. But this doorway does not operate that way. It does not reveal everything before you move. It responds to your movement. That is why this moment matters. Because stepping forward is not about knowing everything. It is about trusting what you already know enough to move. It is about recognizing that you are not being led into something uncertain, but into something that has already been prepared for you. Something that has been waiting for you to reach this level of awareness so it can finally become visible in your path. Archangel Michael's presence at your door was never just about warning you. It was about guiding you to this exact point. A point where you are no longer reacting to life unconsciously, but choosing your direction with awareness. A point where your decisions are no longer based on habit, but on clarity. A point where your path is no longer repeating itself, but unfolding in a new way. This is your doorway into alignment, not a dramatic transformation that changes everything overnight, but a precise shift that changes the way everything unfolds from here forward. Because once you step through this awareness, you do not return to what you were before. You do not unsee what you have seen. You do not unknow what you have come to understand. And that is where your true direction begins. There will be moments ahead where this clarity is tested. Moments where familiarity calls you back. Moments where distraction tries to pull your focus away again. But you are not the same anymore. You will recognize those moments for what they are. You will see the difference. And because of that, your response will not be the same. That is what makes this a doorway, not just a moment. It is not something that ends here. It is something that continues with you. You are stepping into a path that reflects your awareness, your alignment, your clarity. A path that no longer relies on repetition, but on intentional movement. And as you continue forward, what once felt unclear will become steady. What once felt distant will come into view. What once felt uncertain will begin to align in ways that feel natural and undeniable. This is not something you need to force. This is something you allow, because you are already ready for it. You have already reached the point where stepping forward is not only possible, it is necessary. The door is open. The presence is still there. And now, the step is yours. Type "I step into my destiny" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1212 is now activated. As you step into this doorway of destiny, understand this truth: every act of giving becomes a seed planted into someone else's breakthrough. When you release your support through Super Thanks or PayPal, you are not funding a message. You are igniting light in places where darkness still lingers. The Lord declares, "As long as the earth remains, seed time and harvest shall not cease." And this is your moment to activate that promise in your own life. I speak this over you now. The seed you sow today will return as clarity, protection, and divine acceleration in ways you cannot predict. I feel this strongly. This is your moment to respond, not hesitate. The links are already placed before you in the description and through the QR code. Step into it now. Act with intention, because what you release in faith today will echo into eternity.